This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have another special guest from Establish the Run. It's the one and only John Daigle. Welcome to the show, my man.
Appreciate it. Long time coming. Glad we could finally get a schedule down for me to record in the final week before the fantasy playoffs.
The season flies by so fast, and I know I got a chance to meet you in person live finally at the FSGA conference where ETR Established the Run absolutely crushed it with their presentation down there. But it was cool, and I talked about getting you on the show, and so here we are. It's again, it's the end of the season, the end of the regular season, but a lot more to come. You got playoff fantasy football coming. But I'm thrilled to have you on here again. You got to head the Fantasy Football Expo this year too, so it's cool to see you there. So I'm just thrilled to have you on here. I want to share your a bit about your journey in this industry and go from there. But for listeners and viewers that might be unfamiliar with ETR and your role there, can you explain what your role is at ETR, Establish the Run, and what that brand is all about?
I think we gave myself the title of Senior Fantasy Analyst, even though no one really cares. Even me, the label doesn't matter to me. Otherwise, I'd work in the business world. But being not behind the scenes, still like front facing for season long content, but really working with Adam Levitan and Evan Silva and everyone else involved, then even someone like Senior Fantasy Analyst, it doesn't really fit. Those guys have been around, at least doing it at a greater scale longer than I have. So I am just pretty much the season-long specialist. I chip in and help out on Silva's matchups columns. I make them my own, but I'll take over some games for him, including primetime every single week, and then also handle all of the season-long stuff between the waiver wire, streaming rankings, things like that.
And so from a consumer perspective, like what do you think it is that really attracts people to ETR?
The accuracy. We have, like everyone else, I think any kind of fantasy business, it's only successful if you blend in the natural mix of genuine entertainment and information. But I believe just in having like an actual data science team, our accuracy and our projections are really what bring people to pay and be subscribers, just because that's what we pride ourselves on, is being as accurate as possible.
I love it. Well, obviously, there's been a whole lifetime that's led up to your role at ETR. Let's rewind back a little bit, kind of see where it all began. So as a kid, growing up, I think you're from Texas, right? When did you fall in love with sports? When did sports hit you?
Early age, but only because, I turned 38 in 24 hours, actually. And so I grew up in the prime of everyone watching the Cowboys because they were just on national television everywhere. And my dad didn't watch sports at all. And so when I went to kindergarten, though, every one of my friends would talk about the Cowboys because their dads were watching the 92, 93, 95 championship teams. And so because of that, then naturally I start watching sports because my friends are watching sports and talking about it. And it really just took off to another level for me. So it goes all the way back.
So who were your favorite players across the sports spectrum as a kid?
Terrell Owens was always my favorite player. He's still my favorite wide receiver to this day that I've ever seen, just because it came right after, somewhat overlap, but came right after the prime of Jerry Rice with the Niners. And then I grew up also having, again, grown up in the Fort Worth, Arlington area. I was naturally a Rangers, Cowboys, and Stars fan, all a hometown guy. Since then, since I was 21, I've moved all over the world. And so it's harder to watch those teams. My love for the Mavs stuck around the entire time because Dirk is my favorite athlete of all time. Dirk Nowitzki for the Mavericks, I should say. The 2010-2011 championship team is my favorite team ever as well. But also then my heart grew with Luka. Luka gets traded, so I am now a basketball agnostic. I don't have a team anymore because when Luka's gone, I do not care anymore. When ownership gets in the way, that's when I feel like you're the only time in sports you're allowed to not root for your hometown team. And since then, I've lived in Chicago 5 years, so I'm now naturally a Cubs fan as well.
I love it. I love it. No, I can relate to the Luka thing. I mean, I lost my Sonics, right? I'm a Seattle guy, so my Sonics being ripped away from me, it definitely impacted my appreciation and love for basketball.
Seattle, Art Modell, the Cardinals. Like I think it always goes back to ownership. That's the one time where you are allowed to say this really hurts. Like it sucks. I want to be a Mavs fan, but you don't have to be when ownership gets in the way, because then it's no longer out of your hands.
So what's the worst loss experience you've had in sports as a fan? Is it Luka leaving, or is there a game that you can think of?
I mean, I'm still grieving the Luka trade. Like the Micah Parsons trade doesn't matter because he was always he stood on business all the time. Even when he talked about other athletes on his podcast, which he since stopped with the Packers. He could have stopped it a long time ago. I don't know why he didn't stop with Dallas. But anytime he talked about an athlete, he would only talk about their money. He was always going to be only about money, which I'm perfectly fine with. But he was never really had an attachment to the city. Whereas even when you flew into Dallas, Luka's on billboards everywhere. We have murals around him in the city. Like he was our son. And we would have much rather lost every year with our son than win, and they'll never win with Anthony Davis, but win with players who just got brought over for all the wrong reasons. So I'm grieving the Luka trade still, but the worst loss by far, and I would question anyone to like fight me on this, but I think the worst loss in sports history is still the Rangers World Series, whenever they were quite literally one strike away 2 times, and they ended up losing. All because of the David Freese home run, the Nelson Cruz like drop in outfield, but when they should have swapped him out on defense because he was always a terrible defender and he was a great hitter. And so I think those Rangers World Series lost against the Cardinals, that's the worst loss in sports history.
Devastating stuff. But on the other side of it, like, what's your favorite all-time sports moment?
Oh, it's the Mavericks championship team. I can still remember every single player from that roster. I went to at least one game every series whenever they won the championship, including the finals against Miami, which was the first year of the Heatles between LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. That championship team, because it was a bunch of just like quote unquote losers, just a bunch of veterans who had just been journeymen and castaways. Jason Kidd was an all-pro and like won MVP, but he never won a championship. Same for Tyson Chandler, Peja Stojakovic, JJ Barea. The list goes on. It was just a bunch of group of guys who came together with one motive. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about basketball, is that what teams win usually when they're playing for either their leader, which that's Dirk, when you're actually backing one person who you'll go to war with and even die for. Like Brian Cardinal and Jan Mahimi would come off the bench and literally die for Dirk, whatever they had to do. But then also if you're playing for one solid goal, and the goal of all those guys being at the tail end of their careers was a championship.
I love it. That's beautiful. I love when people connect with a team like that and recognize all that scrappiness and can get excited about something that happened a decade ago. That's what sports is all about. It is really, is that passion and that love.
And that's why I talk about with you about, cheering for a hometown team or cheering for a team, because that's how you get the gratification. Like anything in life, you go through the hard times, you make yourself uncomfortable purposely because you're going to come out of it learning something new and a better person. But now there really isn't that gratification because people cheer for players. Having worked in the industry, I cheer for NFL players. I don't cheer for a team. I'm not a Cowboys fan at all anymore. I just like to see the grown men get paid. But really, that's the point of rooting for a very bad team for your entire life and being loyal, is because when you come out the other side of it, ask Bucks fans, I think is the most recent example. Like it's something more beautiful than ever.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's cool, for someone like you, sports media for years, it is easy to kind of get to a point where I'm not the fan that I used to be, when I was younger. But when you have those memories and that nostalgia, gets pulled up, like you can always go back to those times and really, kind of, lean into that passion for sports, and it creates great memories, great stories. I love every aspect of that. So for you, in your early years, did you know you wanted a career in sports media as a childhood? What did you want to be when you were growing up?
It varied, but not the pendulum didn't swing as drastically as a lot of other people in their careers, for better or worse. Like I grew up wanting to be an illustrator in order, an illustrator, a chef, a skateboarder, a professional poker player. And then by the time I hit junior high, 8th grade, I knew I was going to work in sports. At the time, it was newspaper. I just wanted to work like at the Dallas Morning News and then also be on radio. I just wanted to wear multiple hats. But then, the blow up of the industry beyond that, it became the internet and podcasting and writing online or blogging. And so that's kind of what I did from the time I was 15 on, whether it be the high school newspaper, writing blogs on MySpace to get my resume up, building my own website in college with my own podcast. And I would lie to people. I'd cold email guys like Will Brinson, for example, who I'm friends with now. And Adam Levitan, actually. I cold emailed them in college, faking this podcast, like making it sound much bigger than it was. But really, I just wanted the interview reps. And so I would bring them on. I'd record an interview for 45 minutes about fantasy football, about the weeks and the matchups and all that. And they were gracious enough because at the time, you can't really vet that process. Like they can't really tell that this podcast is nothing. This is just a college kid trying to do these things. Yeah. And I would record it. I'd listen back. I'd listen to my cadence and just try to hone out all the errors. And so it started really early. And obviously, like I said, I'm about to be 38, so it hasn't stopped since.
I love it. Putting in the work. It pays off in the long run. Now, when did you discover fantasy sports?
My first paying job, very early. I was the commissioner. Yeah, I was the commissioner in high school and our principal was actually part of it. He never paid up either because we only played for like $10, but the principal never paid. The one guy we didn't get the money from. But it was an 8-man league and I was the commissioner. And at that time, maybe I could have gone on like CBS.com or something and gotten stats. I'm sure box scores are out there. But as you know, a lot of the old school guys, the OGs, Ray Flower, Sigmund Bloom, all those guys, like we grew up just getting notes and doing the points manually from newspapers the next morning. Yep. And so I'd grab the newspaper in the morning on the way to school and my mom was a teacher, so she drove us to the same school. And in the back of the car, I'd do the point system and then bring every one of my friends, a notepad with their points and just tell them to double check it and get it back to me by the end of the day, just in case my math was wrong. And that's how we dictated scores. So I think that was my first time discovering fantasy sports when I was like 12, 13, like going around passing out that notepad, trying to do points awesome. Manually.
Oh man, do you still have that notepad? That'd be pretty hilarious to see.
I don't have a notepad from last year, let alone from sixth grade. So no.
Oh my gosh. So do you remember consuming content? I guess when in the fantasy space, the community, the industry, do you remember some of the first analysts that you picked up on?
At that time, Yahoo was the most free one. Matthew Berry was coming up, but he was still TMR.com for Talented Mr. Roto. And so it wasn't that big just yet. So the only really content I consumed was Bill Simmons on Page 2, which everyone thinks about Bill Simmons, who's just a blowhard now. But back in the day, him and Rick Riley were truly like innovative. And they were the best writers in terms of sports writing I had ever read in my life. Rick Riley has also become a clown that you have zero need to ever hear write anything or say anything ever again. It doesn't matter anymore. But back in the day, before he became that talking clown, I promise you, he was one of the most influential sports writers of our time. So I grew up on Simmons, Riley, and then the other free stuff that was coming along was Yahoo. And so oddly enough, also, my friends, like your friends in the industry, Andy Behrens, Brandon Funston, Brad Evans, those guys, just because like Yahoo was the first one to really put it on a platform and offer it in a broadcasting style. And so I listened to a lot of Yahoo growing up as well.
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of the same boat. It was those Yahoo guys. It was Brandon Funston, Andy Behrens, Brad Evans, that really, they do those those video profiles of the players.
Yep.
Like, I was just constantly, in that
and at the
stuff.
At the time, that was huge because no other site, ESPN wasn't even doing video profiles. Yeah. And so the fact we could have that's all the internet is now, is just like content like that. And it's too muddled up to even care about what anyone's saying anymore. Like that's why you have to kind of latch onto the people you trust or the people who entertain you the most. But at that time, there was no one else doing like 2-minute, 3-minute reels on players. And so that was so cool to see every week.
So what inspired you to get into it, to get into this industry? Like, and when was that?
I'm never gonna be the person to work a 9-to-5 ever. I would be so unhappy. I've tried it and I've just been miserable. And so I've really only ever done what I want to do in life. And at a college, I played professional poker in order to make the time to then write for dirt cheap, for pennies. SB Nation, under David Basile, I believe his name is, name was. He used to run the Seahawks blog as well. I think he's since gone on to much greater things, including like Yahoo overhead of video production. But he was running at the time the 49ers blog because he's from the West Coast, but also somewhat had his hands on SB Nation Fantasy. But, they offered me, gosh, what was it? I'd have to go back and dig into like the direct deposits, but I promise you it was like $25 a week or 25. And it was something so stupidly cheap. And all we did was do live chats, a couple articles per week and our rankings. And that was my first paying fantasy job. And so I'd do that, but really at night, then I'd go run, 12 to 18 hour sessions in between in online poker or in poker in real life. And that was my job.
Amazing. Now, you recently had a really good interview with Alfredo Brown from Football Guys. It was the pretend GM. Really a cool story. I recommend anybody to get out there and listen to that because it's fun to hear your background of obviously from Texas to Chicago, how you ended up in Chicago, your time with Evan Silva. It was pretty enjoyable to hear all that. Time in Australia. I mean, you're truly a dynamic individual. It's really a truly great story. But in regards to your career in this space, what's been the timeline, after you decided to, kind of get in there and you're doing what you're just describing with the poker and the writing, like what did that lead to?
Oh man, that's a long story and journey. So to make it quick for everyone, I was playing again. I was playing professional poker in Australia. I actually went for their Aussie Millions, which is their equivalent of the World Series of Poker. It's still a 10K entry. It's significantly less money, but it's so much smaller. And so I went to play there, even though I'm just a table game player. I'm a miserable tournament player. I learned that a long time ago. Kind of like picking the wrong DFS tournaments to play. I only play small field. I'm a terrible large field player just because you have to see the world differently. And so I went to play this one tournament, loved Australia, ended up staying for 2 years. And that's when I actually grabbed that SB Nation job because the hours were Australia 16 hours ahead. And so I was actually like writing Monday morning. I was like live blogging Monday morning, which is Sunday afternoon there. And it was great. It was just a different time scale where I could do everything I wanted and it still worked out where I could play poker at night. So I did that for a couple of years, but then I eventually realized that if I was truly going to make it in this industry, I had to be on a normal time scale and come back to America and just network better. And so I dropped everything, came back over, moved back in with my parents. Gosh, I think I'm maybe 26, 27 at this time. I can't remember now, but still play poker a little bit on the side. I drove from Dallas to Thackerville, Oklahoma, where WinStar is, which is much bigger now. Back then, it used to be a few poker tables, and it was such easy money where you just waited on tourists to come by. But I would do that overnight, and then I would still write. And I saw good friend Jonathan Bales and Peter Jennings then put out a tweet. That's it. And it just said, hey, we're starting up a site. Like, don't need a resume. Tell me what you've done. And then I explained like basically my world travels and how I worked at SB Nation and wrote previously, built my own site, fantasy site that no one read, but it allowed me to become a better writer. And that was all enough for Bales to hire me and help start Fantasy Labs, which then starting Fantasy Labs, the only other person they had on the NFL team was Adam Levitan. And he had, he didn't even realize he overlapped in a podcast with me before back in college, like a decade beforehand. But then since he was having his first son at the time, now he has two older sons. I would tell him I'll take morning and afternoon, or no, he had a babysitter. So he would take morning and afternoon. I would take nights and weekends for the NFL news. And we basically just keep blurbs going around the clock. That eventually gets really big because DFS blows up. Levitan goes on and signs with DraftKings as a rep while he's also working on other things at Roto World. This is before Levitan and Silva left Roto World. Yeah. And then from that time, because of my work at Labs, Evan Silva had heard of me. And then eventually what happened is that Labs sold to the Chernin Group, who owned Barstool at the time. I then left. My contract ended. And I was basically toiling away. I left for a little bit because I got burnt out. The nights and weekends and constantly literally working 24 hours around the clock, 6 days, but maybe even 7 days a week, honestly. It was the most unhealthy work life I had ever had in my existence, but only because like I really wanted to make it. I was truly driven. It burnt me out. And so I left the industry there's a blind spot season in my career where Carson Palmer played, gosh, was it the Raiders season or his last season with the Bengals? I can't remember. Maybe it was the Raiders season where I basically like didn't do content. I watched football with friends on Sunday, but I did nothing. But I do feel like if you're born to write or born to create art, you just naturally get an itch. It comes back for you. It's a boomerang. Like you don't leave it because it never leaves you. It's in your soul all the time. And like 6 months down the road, I got the itch again. And so once again, I went back to cold emailing, and he knows this now. I've told him in the past, but I faked an email. I didn't fake an email. I wrote an email to JJ Zachariason, who was CEO of NumberFire at the time. And I lied to him and told him, hey, I saw this inquiry on your site. This is what here's some examples I have. I'd love to finish out the season with you. And he goes, yeah, I've heard of you. And we do need some help. So like, can you take on these articles? What are your other ideas? And then I took that on, and it was great because my first idea, like I sent in the article, it got rejected hard. He basically just dunked on it and said, this is the worst thing he's ever seen. He didn't really say that, but he said it without saying it. But doing that made me like, it also then crafted my writing. Because by that time, again, I just studied writing. No one had really edited me. JJ and Brandon Gadula and Jim Sanis and all those guys then crafted my writing to make me a better analytical writer. So now I'm not only a storyteller like I was in the past, but then also I understand actual analytical writing. And that's kind of what's made me the writer that, for better or worse, that I am today. And so after NumberFire, Silva saw those things, DM'd me directly. We'd never talked ever. We had never overlapped. But obviously this is when he's at his hottest. Everyone knows who he is. And he just DMs me his number and says, call me. I call him. We talk for like 45 minutes. This is 2 years before he creates ETR. And he's like, hey, we have some space at Roto World. Do you want to like write news? It doesn't pay much, but it'll get your name out there more. It's like, yeah, I'm in. And so I then joined them. And at the time, that is Josh Norris, Patrick Daugherty, Nick Mencio still over there, and Silva. And that's basically our crew. And then the next year over, we bring Hayden Winks and Eden Harditz on. But before then, that's kind of how I joined Roto World. And then eventually it became, when Silva and Levitan left, NBC needs a pivot and they want to go to more video and broadcasting in studio. So Norris is very excited about that because Norris has always wanted to do TV and a larger scale items. And that's something I was excited about. And so they flew me in. I do some camera work. It's all natural, whatever, because I'm just always myself, no matter what kind of format I'm on. And then I get hired and moved to Connecticut, and we're running great. We win Best Fantasy Football Podcast of the Year award during the pandemic because that was a terrific season. And then the pandemic actually hits, and there's no more studio in NBC for fantasy guys. Thus, I'm a remote worker, and then it becomes 4 for 4 in ETR. So that's the whole story. Amazing. And that sadly is the short version.
I love it. No, it's a phenomenal story, and what a journey. And so much, such a great example of making things happen. I mean, you got to make things happen no matter what you're doing in life, to move forward. And that's an awesome story. What's been the most rewarding part of this journey for you?
Oh, all the people I've met, for sure. I'm very happy with just having overlapped with everyone. People I were mentors from afar, didn't realize it, but I would study, not their takes or anything. I still take in content, honestly, and study styles and delivery and just what people are looking at to hone in my blind spots all the time. And I think, my friends, JJ Zachariason and Rich Rebar are the very best at that. And that I don't need to know what their picks, but I do like to see what angles they're coming from to say, do I need to add that to my repertoire to like make my analysis even better? And so I just think the people I've met along the way who I can now call brothers and friends, genuinely, I know it's cliche. It's not a holiday answer. It's genuinely the answer. People I can now call my very best friends.
Well, and it's a common story in the fantasy community. Definitely a community that is accepting and wanting to connect. It's a special place for sure. I'm glad.
And there are people I don't even talk to, daily. I talk to Rich, daily. He's my brother basically, and Silva I talk to daily. But there are people I don't talk to daily, but I see at events like Matt Harmon. Joey Wright is another one. But every time I see them, I hug them deeply because it's like we're long lost family. Like it just because the season got in the way for 6 months doesn't mean we can't catch up on those 6 months very quickly. So I think that's the most warming feeling anytime we get those events we get to go to.
I love it. That's great. Now let's talk a little bit about fantasy leagues. Do you have one league that is the most important league to you, like whether it's like a home league or even an industry league that's the one you got to win?
Everyone's, even yours, Kevin's. Everyone knows in the industry, the most important league we all have is our group text home league. That for some reason also I cannot win to the death of me. I can't win that freaking league. I like to say I'm too busy with content to pay too close attention to the waiver wire, but regardless, they still talk trash because they're the high school friends. So that league is my favorite league and the most important one, even though I'm in a lot that I consider important, including this one.
All right. Still going strong. Still going strong since high school, huh?
That's the group. And the best part is the one reason we all stay in that group is because the winner, we've started this like a decade ago. It's been going for 18 to 20 years. I'd have to actually go back and look at the logs, but and this is the same league, by the way, I told you about with the notepad scoring. Like it's evolved since then. And like some people have been added and removed. But like the bonds over the last decade between the same league with friends we've kind of picked up along the way. That's what matters most. And what's most important about that league is that every single year, the winner picks where we go draft. We all rent an Airbnb for a week. And now it's, as we gotten older, it's become a golf trip and just like a way to tour breweries in the area we go to, but the winner always picks a different location. This year, for instance, it was Portland. It's been Bend, Oregon in the past. Okay. It's been San Diego, New York, places in the South, places in the Midwest. It's been in Florida. It's been all over. So the winner books the Airbnb in for a week, and then we all fly in at the times we can, and then mostly golf trips, poker all night. It's just booked around the clock.
Man, that's about as good as it gets when it comes to traditions and fantasy leagues, a league that goes back that far. That's what I want for everybody is to have a league like that, because that's awesome. Who is the biggest rival you have in fantasy? Who's the one person you got to beat when you're facing head to head?
That's a great question. I guess it would be probably Rich. It probably would be Rich, honestly, just because not only in respecting him and loving him so much, but thinking he's talented. And also we talk so much. It's always good to have the bragging rights for that one time, anytime we overlap. Now he plays a lot. He plays in everything. He plays a lot more Dynasty though. And I am the guy who I love Dynasty, but I'm also not as active as everyone would like. Like in the off season, because I do check out. I'm a big checkout guy. I like to make sure when I'm offline, I'm completely offline and don't see notifications at all. During the off season, it may take a couple weeks for me to respond to a trade offer, and that's not acceptable in Dynasty leagues. And I accept that opinion, but I'm also not changing my ways because I'm not going to be online all the time. So I don't run into Rich too often, but when we get to run into each other in these industry leagues, it's always good for bragging rights.
I love it. Well, talking about industry leagues, you are involved in a highly competitive industry charity league. You got $10,000 going out to charity, $5,000 to Fantasy Cares, $5,000 to the winner's charity of choice. I got to ask you, what was your charity of choice in this league?
It was Nomni for mental health awareness, but also just in general. Speaking on mental health, unfortunately now my team is struggling. And so I'm going to have to donate more personally because my mental health is not well over this time of the year, but it's going to be okay. My charity was Nomni, and we did win some money based on the other caveats that yourself and Jeremy added into the league between drafting, pickups, things like that. So we still won enough money to help donate.
Exactly. Yeah. And when a league is donating and that's the focus, I mean, that's everyone wins, no matter what the standings are. But first of all, when it comes to this league, why is it that you wanted to participate?
Well, I'm not in too many charity leagues, in a couple, but for the most part, I wanted to be in this one just because I get to play on behalf of the charity that I support the most. So that's what made me most excited to do it. Not only that, but the coverage that you have added brings more awareness to the charities that the 12 of us are all playing for as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to cover for sure. From my perspective, it's been great. But we've kind of referenced to it. Standings aren't looking so good. However, you were still in fine place, in my opinion, to get out of this spot. You were currently in last place. You haven't been all season. Like you were fighting in there, trying to get out of
injuries.
But injuries. I mean, you had Bucky Irving, you had Omari and Hampton, your second and third round picks. I mean, how do you recover from that? Pretty difficult, especially in a league like this. So some bad luck for sure, but you've managed to find yourself in last It's the last week of the season. If you win, which you are favored to win, and you got Greg Branos, who's tied with you, he's facing Sigmund Bloom. That's not a good good matchup for
number
him.
2 seed.
So,
yeah.
Number 2 seed, right? And then I believe David Kitchen also is kind of in that place for potential last place. If he loses and you win and you beat him, you outscore him by 20, you can still get past that. So if you win and Greg Branos loses, you're out of it. You're out of that last place spot. Or if you win, David Kitchen loses and you outscore him by 20, you got a shot. So I think that you're in the best place out of the 3. Regardless, here we are. What's it been like competing in this league for you?
It's been a lot of fun, and I want to be clear. Like, I am my worst enemy. I'm very accountable for my own sins and try to correct them and grow any mistakes I make in life. So I am not one to run from accountability at all. Having said that, I can absolutely directly attribute the lack of success in this league to Monday waivers. And I get it, Jeremy. Jeremy's listening, I know. I get it. But also, Monday night waivers are really hard, especially because I'm doing so much for the week. I'm not blaming or being like I'm busy guy, but I'm saying Monday waivers are really hard. And so I can directly say that is why I am failing in this league, is because I have missed a few very important waiver runs. Not to mention, I play soccer on Sunday morning still every week. And the one that really just put a dagger into my heart was the Jaylen Warren overseas international game where he got late scratched. I was on the turf. Like, I was on the pitch already, and it happened. So it was literally impossible for me to see that news and react. And of course, my opponent, Gretsch, that week picked up Kenneth Gainwell. Remember, Kenneth Gainwell was the RB3 on the week in Berlin. And so, yeah, that one has been rough the entire time. The waivers have really just destroyed me. It's been fun, though. It's been a lot of fun. And so next year, if we happen to all be lucky, if I'm fortunate enough to get invited back, I'm going to have to do something special, like put a notification in or like have someone do waivers. So I don't know what, but the Monday night waivers have been really tough on me, admittedly.
Well, I will say, I mean, again, Bucky, Hampton out.
The injuries,
Lamb missing some time. I mean, your top. If you left in August or whenever you draft a team like this, if you leave the draft with Jalen Hurts, CeeDee Lamb, Bucky Irving, Omarion Hampton, Devonta Smith. I mean, you got some other guys, sprinkle in there. Like, that's a team that I'd be happy to leave the draft with, and I'm sure you were too.
And remember, I traded number 1 seed right now, Dave Richards, Braylon Allen for Jake Ferguson after the draft. And Jake Ferguson has been, regardless of what he's done lately, like, he has been one of the gold mines of fantasy football this year, just based on where he was picked. And so all my teams look similar in that I thought it was obvious to fade all running backs from, I'm going to add James Cook to this list because I have no James Cook. That was wrong. But I basically took the entire veteran window of James Cook all the way through Jaylen Warren and Jordan Mason. So this eliminates Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, all these guys that people complain about every week. I don't have any of because I thought it was bad picks given that they were all being drafted around elite wide receivers. JSN, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jameson Williams, George Pickens, just goes on and on and on and on. And my point all offseason was that you cannot miss out on Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and these wide receivers for these veteran running backs in committees who aren't even explosive. It just doesn't make sense. And so all my teams kind of have the same record, because it was easy to pad for injuries using the waiver wire. And I could look up and see I had like 5 49ers on some teams between CMC, who I drafted over Barkley in every single league, Juwan Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle, and Purdy. I mean, literally practically in every league. I just pounded the 49ers and the Cowboys. But in this league, again, to pad for those injuries, I had to be on waivers. And I did that in other leagues, but those were Tuesday night and Wednesday night waivers. I could not do it on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only way to overcome.
I could not hide from the injuries. But that explains my team, though, because my team has Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Jacoby Myers, Jake Ferguson, Bucky Irving, Jaylen Warren, Omarion Hampton. Like, the team is good for a 12-team league. I just could not pad for the injuries. And then you see those sins pop up at the end of the year. Similar to making mistakes throughout the end of the year. And then you step on the scale. And you're like, oh, what did I do? I didn't go to the gym enough or whatever. Like I didn't go to the gym enough in this league for sure.
I love it. Well, that's why I think the roster you got right now, I think that's why you're taking down Jake Seeley this week. That's why I think last place is you're not coming back on this show. We're going to move on to the off season and plan for next season. So that's the plan.
I like where your head's at.
I love it. So we're looking around this league. Is there one manager in this league that you got to beat? Like, that's like kind of biggest rival for you?
Oh, it's Jake. Not only because he stands in my way this week, but because he called me out the last time he was on this show. So, and by the way, again, being accountable, he's absolutely right. I'm the worst texter you've ever met. You've actually got the experience the past couple of weeks where I know. No. I'm such an old school face-to-face communication guy. It doesn't make sense in the day and age now. I totally get it. But I'm the worst texter and emailer you've ever met, and I know that too.
I don't agree. What I've seen is that you've been responsive on text. I asked you what's your favorite form, what's the best form of communication. You said text. Yeah. We text, you respond. Like I think that's a fallacy.
I think the benefit of texting me is that I'm a direct texter, is that like I'll give you the exact time and information and there won't be fluff. And then when we get together, we can have a glass of whiskey and have all the fluff you want. But I do admit through technology, which is all we do, I'm a very bad communicator. Again, that's on me. Jake is absolutely right. I'm the girlfriend you don't want to text that you're dating. Yeah.
All right. Now, looking around this league, again, we're 14 weeks in. Who's going to win this thing? Who's the team to beat?
I was actually looking through all the teams earlier, and honestly, there's nothing top heavy, which is always fun for a league. It's been really tough. Everyone's grinded waivers. Even the 5 and 6 seed, like Gretsch and Barons, are fighting right now, and their teams are scrappy. And that's just kind of the theme of 2025 fantasy football, is that I think the teams that are going to win are the teams with the best running backs, the strongest foundation at that position, and then plug and playing wide receivers, just because there's only a few elite wide receivers that you feel comfortable having, especially now that quarterbacks are falling injury and offenses are failing entirely. So when I look at that and I think of foundation of running backs and like solid wide receivers you can keep plugging in, I think the number 2 seed, Sigmund Bloom, I truly think right now he is the best team. Like Dave has done a terrific job all year long, but I don't personally have confidence in his receivers. Even someone like DK Metcalf is closer to droppable than startable. And so I really like the options, even on his bench, that Sig has going into the playoffs.
There we go. Sig's the vote. I love it. Now you mentioned earlier, just how special the fantasy football community has been for you, the relationships. That's what it's been all about for you. You went to the expo. Talk to me about that. That was the first time at the expo, right?
No. I've been to the expo in the past, but I had to miss it a couple years before. Yeah, okay. So I think we didn't get to overlap the couple years prior, which is probably why you thought it was my first time. But I've been going.
How was that experience for you?
Great. I've been going to the expo for a long time now, and we see the expo now trying to change and just get different every year in order to continue making sure that more people stay interested rather than being stale, like a restaurant that's going out of business and not actually looking around and saying, I actually need to change my ways, as opposed to asking, what is everyone else doing wrong? And so the expo, like this year, made a few changes to their events. Next year, they're going even earlier, before the preseason, which is actually kind of fun because previously we were all wrapping up content, in that second week of August. But now in July, we're still in the heart of it, to where I can probably just take time off, like take the weekend off, and then come out Monday and just be just fine, because I still have 3 to 4 weeks to finish all my stuff. So I'm really excited about the actual, the time change and the date change, and just the fact that, like last year, you just continue meeting new people around the clock.
Well, I think the July Expo will definitely has the potential of bringing a lot of people that haven't been to it for the first time, because that August schedule is tricky for a lot of people. So I'm excited. I'm just like you, excited for the next Expo. It's going to be a ton of fun. There's other events out there, FSGA. Like, you guys did a great job at this FSGA. What was that experience like for you in Chicago? Must have been nice.
That was easy. Probably the only reason they invited me, because I was also in Chicago. Like Taylor Cavey, Evan Silva, and I we're all, Cavey's in the burbs, but Silva and I live just a couple miles away from each other. And again, we see each other and talk to each other so often, every day during Cubs season, especially because we're both like coming to and from the game so often with his season tickets. But it was great. The entire experience was amazing. The compliments afterwards, just talking about business. I still feel like I don't belong up there with those two. So I got to also add in my own unique perspective in coming into the business late and being like the season long guy, which is a department they kind of just added on the fly once we all agreed that this is something the company needed. And so it was just honestly just tremendous. Like the fact that, we talked after Kay Adams, that's not, like John Daigle, Evan Silva, and Taylor Cavey should never be in a situation where like they go on after Kay Adams. That's the situation that happened talking about business. So that in itself was very unique and just cool to talk to everybody.
I love it. Well, talking about business, there's a lot of people that want to get into the business. They want to get into the industry, do more in the space. You go to the expo, a lot of people are out there that just want to find connections, meet people, learn from others and follow the path of people that have found some success. What advice do you have for people that are aspiring to get more involved in fantasy sports?
Talk to people, network, be yourself is most important, because a lot of people just try to do the same content that everyone else does now. And it's not as easy as like finding a niche, because it's such an isolated sport, and fantasy football content is such a niche in itself. It's really hard to be unique around it. But I just think of someone like, I think the most unique person in the industry is Peter Overzet, who really did everything his own way, while also being creative and just using like what he had best, which is his personality and drive. And so I think you just find what makes you comfortable, what you're most comfortable doing, and then keep on building off of that.
I love it. Great answers for sure. Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. Now, the questions be rapid. If the answers aren't rapid, that's okay. But what do you enjoy most about what you do in the industry right now when it comes to just content?
In terms of content, even though it is the bane of my existence, I do enjoy writing the waiver wire. It's a labor of love, just like anything anyone's ever write, or if you journal. You absolutely hate the process of it, but then when it's done, you look back and you're like, oh, look at this baby. Like, this is a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I think the waiver wire column I do is one of the best in the industry. I would not do it if I didn't think so.
What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
I'm a distance runner. I actually have a 50-mile race in April that I'm currently, began training for 3 weeks ago, actual regimented training. And it's fun this time of year in Chicago too, because this is a rapid fire. I'm sorry. I'm such a talker.
No,
I'm so bad at rapid fire.
I thought this question would be a long one, because I think you have a lot of different interests. So yeah, continue.
Anytime Sigmund Bloom does this, when I go on the couch with him at Football Guys as well, he asks me and he's like, you got to hold it to like 2 words at most. Like, gosh, I'm just straining trying to get 2 words. But I'm a distance runner. So, and it's fun running outside in Chicago because it's so cold. But again, going back to gratification, you do 4 months of outside training with your lungs collapsing, but you're expanding them. The spring comes along and you're the greatest runner the world has ever seen, because your lungs are just so ready to be warm again, and they've expanded so much. So I think the winter in the Midwest and the North in general is really time to just like go quiet. Like Devontae Adams says, run your routes, get off Instagram, get off social media, just go run your routes. I think the winter is a really good time to grow isolated by yourself. So I really like doing that and running outside and distance running. And then also, gosh, what else do I do? I think it's as simple as like go into breweries. This time of the year, I'll shut my brain off, or not yet, but after the Super Bowl, I'll shut my brain off for a couple of weeks. I'll be a vegetable and just play video games for a couple of weeks, like trying to get my energy back, and then I'll get back into best ball. A lot of people do best ball immediately. I like to take the time off and just be completely isolated from the world and do nothing. Stay up late, eat junk food, like literally just get into the worst habits possible, and then snap out of it a couple weeks later. Gosh, what else do I do? Just like board games and games with friends. Like I said, I play soccer. I'm in a bowling league on Wednesday nights. Really, honestly, just really people activities, which I guess is kind of what the world's craving right now anyways, as AI continues to take over all of us. We just want more face-to-face interaction. So I do a lot of that.
Yeah, connection. I think it's
Absolutely
huge. It's why fantasy leagues are special. What's your all-time favorite TV show?
The Wire, which is also the cliche, like white writer answer, I know, but it's The Wire is the greatest TV show I've ever seen. It's even better in the rewatch too, because those who know the show, season 2 is awful, and that similar to, let's relate it to the kids, Last of Us 2, the video game. There's some big events that happen, and it becomes an entirely different game and TV show, like entirely different, and it wipes you out. That's kind of what The Wire is that the characters go away and they come back with new characters, and you're just upset because you love the characters from season 1. But if you go back and rewatch it, season 2 is actually the most important of all 5 seasons because it connects the entire city and all the characters that eventually come back and really just get involved in, The Wire is a show about the problems of the world more than a city. So in a country. So yeah, I love The Wire, The Sopranos, the typical answers, honestly.
Some good ones for sure. How about a favorite movie?
Pulp Fiction. I'm a big Tarantino guy, but beyond Pulp Fiction, it's the most male testosterone answers ever. But Pulp Fiction, Gladiator, Godfather 1 or 2, they're both the same. Don't watch Godfather 3. And did I say Good Will Hunting? Yeah.
You were about to.
Okay, yeah. Those 2. Gladiator, Godfather, Good Will Hunting, Pulp Fiction. Yeah, those are them.
Love it. How about a sports movie?
The most Miracle's really good, but the most underrated that no one talks about that I still think is not only the best golf movie, but it's up there. Like if you remove your childhood nostalgia for Little Giants, The Sandlot, and The Big Green. The Big Green, by the way, holds up. It's still very, very good movie. Angels in the Outfield, not so much, but Big Green's great. But if you remove your childhood nostalgia for those sports movies, The Greatest Game Ever Played is excellent. It is like beyond a golf movie. It's just about the drive of life. So I think the best sports movie is The Greatest Game Ever Played.
Okay. How about food? I know you're a foodie. You like to cook.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food or meal?
So my favorite genre is Indian. Even though oddly enough, I went to India for a friend's wedding. I was there for 3 weeks last year during the fantasy playoffs, and I was recording shows still from a Sri Lankan bathroom, like with the dogs around me barking at like 3 a.m. their time. It was really strange. Anyways, though, I still got the job done. But I went to India, and obviously being in India, you have Indian food 4 times a day. That's your entire meal for 3 weeks. And so I oddly haven't had curry in 11 months. I haven't had it since I got back to the States in February. But Indian food is absolutely my favorite genre. Discovered it when I lived in Australia because growing up in like small town Texas, we just really didn't have that outlet. And then favorite dish, though, would probably still be wings. As simple as that is, dude, a good chicken, a good buffalo wing, you can't beat it. Or ribs also. But like you got to be careful about your barbecue. Again, coming from Texas, I am a snob. And brisket, at least, it's kind of like when you have pizza all over, but then you get actual like New York slice. And it's like, oh, I get the difference now. Texas brisket, when you have it, you're like, oh, I see what people are talking about. Regardless of like the best brisket you've ever had in your life, Texas will beat it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now with the Indian food, how was the authentic Indian food in India compared to what you're used to?
Great. It's also natural. And a lot of the times, and this probably it's not for what's the word I'm looking for? It's not for like the effects of like, usually you show what you sell. That's how you sell. You show, right? Like think about when Steve Jobs brought out the first Mac Air, he had it in a manila envelope. And like he just picked it up, and the crowd oohed and awed because he showed what he sold. A lot of times that's what like America has become, is that's what marketing is. You got to show what you sell. India, it's more about like the poverty level, and so they cook everything in front of you. But you can see how quite literally natural everything is, from literally like turning around and getting the coconut off the tree, chopping it with a machete, and then like making it into your noodles or whatever. Everything is made fresh on the spot. Again, that goes to like the culture and the poverty level, not because they're trying to sell anything, but everything being so natural. Like the food is clearly, as anything you've had that comes straight from the root, amazing.
Yeah. Love it. How about a favorite beverage?
Well, I mean, I live on water, coffee, and alcohol. So beyond that, honestly, I'll say a black cup of coffee is literally my favorite thing in the world. I start every day with a black cup of coffee, whether it's before the gym, after the gym. So I'll say a black cup of coffee is my favorite beverage.
There it is. How about a favorite artist or band or musician?
My music opinion is so bad. I go to concerts with friends because I'm very open to everything, but I don't tell my friends about concerts because I don't want them coming with me because they will hate my music. I'm the first to admit it's awful. And so like my favorite rapper, because I listen to a lot of hip hop, my favorite rapper is Action Bronson. And I've seen him around the world, Australia, LA. I've been to so many locations where he's played. Anytime he comes to Chicago, because he comes here usually once a year, I'll definitely go see. So I love Action Bronson. And then the other typical, I grew up on Clips as well because I grew up on the Houston rap scene. And so between Clips, UGK, Paul Wall, things like that, when Clips came out with a new album this year, it was a baptismal moment for me. So much so I bought new headphones just so I could like hear the actual like difference in audio inputs from their vinyl. So I also love Clips.
That's dedication. I love it. Now, how about a favorite vacation you've been on?
Man, I'm more of a hiker. Again, I'm an outdoors person when I get away from notifications. And so I go to Banff, Alberta. My best friend is the mayor of Banff, Corey D'Amato. She's the youngest female legislator in Canadian history, and I'm very proud of her. I grew up with her. And so I go to Banff every other year to see her and her family, and the summer in particular. So I'm going to say Banff because I think it's literally one of the most beautiful places on earth. Every mountain there, or every run you go on through the parks, every hike you go on, it's truly taken out of a Microsoft screensaver. So Banff, Alberta, it's everyone's got to see it once.
Yeah, it's definitely on our list. That it's very inexpensive from Seattle to fly there. So we definitely, it's on our list to get.
It is
sure.
Now it is expensive when you get there because it's a city driven off tourism. Locals they don't exist basically because it's such around Jasper and Calgary in that area. First of all, Calgary is a much bigger area, but you go into Banff and a lot of times what happens is the kids come up or just like, the wanderlusting people who in the next universe over, that's what I am. I have long hair, abs, and I'm literally working at a hostel for free just to have a bed, cleaning toilets and washing their laundry. And I'd be happy with that kind of lifestyle. But that's the kind of life that kind of everyone has in Banff, is that if you don't like have a city job, a lot of people come in, work the ski lifts or work hospitality just for the winter because they love skiing and snowboarding so much. And then they leave to travel during the summer.
It's perfect. I mean, it's not a bad lifestyle for sure.
I think it's an amazing life. Again, I'm doing that in the next life over. Not in this one, but in the next life over for sure.
I love it. How about a destination, a bucket list destination for you?
I still got to do... Well, you know what? I want to hike Mount Fuji. They have bullet hikes where you go up overnight and you get to the top because it's not like Kilimanjaro. It doesn't take 3 to 5 days. And there is a little bit of concern about altitude sickness, but you can you can bullet hike, which is just literally hike straight up. Don't stop at the cabins in between Mount Fuji. And I want to do it because you bullet hike overnight and you get there by sunrise. And so that's the goal, is to go one time, hike it overnight to make sure I get there by sunrise, and then watch sunrise from Fuji and then go down slowly the next day.
Sounds amazing. As long as you can get up there, that sounds incredible. What are you most grateful for at this time?
Oh man, that's a terrific question. And I'm someone who tries to stay present all the time. And given that I've been really reflective, given that it's my birthday, and usually when you teeter on 40, you start having a midlife crisis. So I think I'm most grateful just for the people in my life and the people I've met. You get to a point sometimes where you struggle, and if you have to step back. This is what running teaches you, by the way, is that like no run is perfect. Sometimes you get run. That's what we all say. And during those times, you don't stop, but you just have to start zooming out to the bigger picture. It's like, okay, the goal is to run, a 7-minute mile. It doesn't become 7 minutes, it becomes 9 minutes. Okay. The goal is to make it to this point. You can't make it to that point fast. Okay. The goal is to be grateful I have legs. Okay. Well, right now my legs hurt. And then the goal is to be grateful I'm breathing. And it just keeps on zooming out. And so honestly, like at this time, a very reflective moment, I'm just grateful that not only can I move, but I'm just grateful for the people in my life, most importantly.
I love it. Now, speaking of gratitude, and obviously, this industry and your time in it, can you name some of the people that have had just a huge impact on you? I know you've name dropped several people over this conversation, but anybody that's been just really influential in your path?
I mean, like line them up, all 150 of them. Evan Silva, Rich Rebar, Jay-Z Zachariason, Sigmund Bloom, Jonathan Bales, Peter Jennings, Jay Pearson, who's the mastermind behind Underdog News that no one really knows that. He runs all the news accounts there that everyone loves so much on social media. And he would never tell you because he's so humble, but he's a brilliant genius. And he's one of my best friends. I still talk to basically every day, every other day. He just had a kid, so it's really hard for parents, to talk when they have a newborn, but I love him to death. When I was going through, when I first moved to Chicago, it was for a relationship. It ended very, very poorly. We both grew from it. No one's fault, but I was in a bad mental state, and listeners, oddly enough, reached out to have drinks with me. Like they were like, hey, like if you just need someone to talk to, I live in Chicago. I'm in the area. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm really good friends now with people who were listeners in the past, but now they're just really good friends. Man, so who to thank?
That's
everybody,
incredible.
Literally everybody. That there's too many names. There's quite literally too many.
I love it. Well, you named a lot, and that's pretty cool. That's amazing with the listeners. That's a great story for sure. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to cover before we close things up?
Oh, I'm grateful for you and Jeremy for doing this league. I know my team is not showing it so far, but I appreciate everything you do. Jeremy works his ass off, by the way, behind the scenes, helping out everyone at Fantasy Football Reddit, you yourself creating the content for this league. So I genuinely, like more than anyone else, just appreciate the two of you for doing everything you do for this league throughout the year.
I appreciate it, John. Obviously, that's going to wrap things up. Can you share with the listeners and viewers where they can find your work?
Established2Run.com and not J Daigle on Twitter, which, by the way, also, whenever I created an account in 2009, worst business decision of my life to put not, because again, if you've learned anything from this interview, you've learned that I'm eventually going to have a satellite phone to live in the woods and be away from everybody, and then come back in and visit them whenever they're free with their kids. But yeah, not J Daigle, the not's in front, but you can still find me quite easily. I'm the only not J Daigle online. And then the Established Run podcast is free, but you can still reach out to me if you have any questions and everything.
He is the John Daigle. There's no other John Daigle, the one and only. Again, thrilled to have you on here. It was a ton of fun, and wish you all the best getting out of that last place spot. It's going to happen.
I hope so.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.